Good evening, boys and girls, puppies or kittens. In this episode, we're gonna learn about level design, and we're gonna integrate our tilemap and see how can we use the atlas to generate our dungeon. And as an extra, we're gonna learn how to integrate the animated tiles. But before we go inside this tutorial, I want to share something I found in my analytics on YouTube. From all of you beautiful people out there who are watching my videos, only 13% actually subscribe to my videos. If you can please just hit the subscribe, it will help me a lot. And if you're interested in getting more updates, hit this small icon with a bell. You'll get all the notifications about my upcoming things or actually coming out stuff. So, all that aside, we've got some work to do. Let's dive in. First of all, we're gonna recap what we have. So we've got our atlas from our previous episode, and we've got the script of the camera and the player. Today, we're gonna focus on the artistic side, so we're not gonna worry about any scripts. And one of the important stuff in building tiles in Unity is, or probably in most of the tile games, is deciding how big is your tile. And what by this I mean is you're going to have a huge grid as your canvas in a game, and you need to define what's going to be that grid size. And if you remember from our previous episode, we've decided that the grid is going to be 16 pixels by 16 pixels. So keeping that in mind, we're going to use this throughout the episode. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open our atlas that we have in the art folder and click sprite editor and start picking up the stuff that we need to use. I'm not going to pick all the things. I'm just going to pick a couple of those stuff that's going to help me build my small dungeon. And we need to make sure to pick all the necessary stuff. For example, floor, wall, and let's say obstacles. And probably going to use this one for animation or the box, doesn't matter. So we're going to go ahead and start doing it. So as I said, we decided we're going to go with 16 by 16. So all element, like each piece is going to have to be 16 by 16. And you're going to say, all right, what about these tiles, like the pillars? It's going to be fine. So we're going to go ahead and make it 16 by 16. So we're going to slice it up, middle, and bottom. That's fine, because you might need to do some really tall pillars. Sometimes you want to do smaller. But again, you have to stick with the 16 by 16. And how you make sure is, whenever you create this section, you have to make sure that the width is 16 and the height is 16. See, I have it 17, so just make sure it's 16, and you have it done. And you want to make sure that you go ahead and make sure, like I want to say, correspond with the actual atlas. What I mean by this is, you see the walls in here, the floors are like going side by side. So having a 16 floor is going to be like, this is going to be the first piece, as you can see, the first piece, and then the second piece, third, etc. So let's start and pick up our floors. I'm going to start picking the first floor, call it floor 0, and go ahead and do the second one. Make sure it goes by 16 by 16. Floor 1. I'm not going to take this one because this is not actually floor, and this one is not. Well, this is actually is floor, but it has some green goo on top of it. So let's call it floor. I will name it green. Now, let's go here. I think I've aligned this one. Forgot to name this one, so let's do it right now. So we got floor, we got 0, 1, 2, 16 by 16. This one is 15 by 16. So let's make sure that floor 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's go and make the fifth one, I suppose. Yep. Floor 4, 5, floor 5. Let's make sure the size 16, floor 6. And this is going to be our last one, floor 7. I'm not going to use this one right now. I'm going to show you how to add more elements later on. So we get the floors. I'm going to go ahead and take off some wall elements. So let's make sure this is 16 by 16. Again, if you pick this whole thing up, you're going to end up with a tile that's bigger than the grid size. So we're going to avoid this one. So this is the first wall. I'm going to call it wall 0. And this is 16, wall 1, and this will be wall 2. Let's make sure it's 16, wall 2. There's a lot of other stuff, like we have this wall here, which I like. Let's make sure it's 16 by 16. We have this grid. Let's have it selected in a way. I think if we go here, and this one will be here. I don't know. I mean, probably I will select it in a way that I don't go over. Like you see this here. I want to make sure that it's set up either like this or like this. So I'm going to go ahead and make this one here. So make it wall, and this kind of 0, 1, 2, 3. Just have some variations in this old stuff. I'm gonna also take the which one should we take? I think I'll take this one with that has transparent in the background. So let's go ahead, make this one 16 by 16. Whoops, I can't press apparently. So we have this one. Let's call it pillar 0. Actually, I'm gonna call it pillar 2 because I'm gonna start from the bottom. Actually, pillar 0. Let's go from the bottom here. And then this will be pillar 1. You see, I'm trying to keep it 16 by 16. This one is 16. Pillar 2. So those ones, I'm going to use them as obstacles. You can see we have other types of walls. We have these side walls. I'm going to use them as well. You can take it only this one here. It doesn't hurt, but for the sake of consistency, we're going to go ahead and do this one here. So it's going to be side wall 0. Actually, you know what? I'm going to call it vertical, right? Yeah, vertical wall 0. Let's go ahead and make another one. Vertical wall 1. And let's go ahead and make horizontal wall. Go with that. Just want to make sure that I have horizontal wall 0. Let's get another 16 by 16. And I'm going to take this one here. Horizontal wall 1. I think I'm gone. Let's see, what else do we need? I think for now this is enough. Let's click apply, exit. You're going to see all these stuff in here, all the way down here, all these stuff. Let's ignore the player and the enemy for now. The first thing we need to do is we need to open our atlas. And if I can remember, it's in 2D tile palette. Did I say atlas? I meant tile palette. You can keep it over in here, but I do suggest that you anchor it by dragging this tile palette and put it somewhere. I like it. Sorry, I like it here. Doing something. Good. I like it on the right side because it's more of a, like a squarish. So what is this? Basically, it's it's your palette. And by palette, when you draw, if you're familiar with the painting, it's the thing that you hold, which includes all the colors. So you pick from it and you draw on your canvas. And basically, it has the same meaning here. This will include all the tiles that we're going to use to paint in our game. So the first thing we need to do is open the atlas and select all the sprites that we sliced. So this is from all the way here, floor 0 up until here. And then we got the pillars as well. So I'm holding shift, selecting all these stuff. And then now I'm clicking control, selecting this one, this, and this. So we've selected all these stuff. I want to ignore the player and the enemy because they're used in a sprite render, not in the tilemap. Tilemap is more of a static stuff in the level, whereas the player is a bit interactive. So he actually moves around and does all these things. So I'm gonna drag all these stuff and drop them in here. Oh, but before that, I need to create a palette, which is, I forgot. I don't have a palette yet. Actually, it says create a new palette. So I'm going to create a palette, call it Underground. And without changing anything in here, just click Create. And choose the folder that you need. I'm going to go ahead and make it in the same folder of art. Just create something here called Palette. And just select. So what it's going to do is it's going to create a palette prefab in here, which you don't have to worry about. It's just it's more of like the bank of whatever you're doing here. So whatever you're doing here is going to be saved in here. A lot of here. So as we've done before, we've selected these stuff. We just drag them and drop them in here. When I do this, you're going to see there's like a section here. So let's just drop it as it is. It's going to ask me where do you want to save your tiles. So these tiles, I'm going to put them inside the same folder of the palette and click select folder. It's going to generate all these tiles and randomly put them in here. You're going to say, oh, I don't like how this looks. Well, that's just fine. Because you can use the palette to draw stuff, but again, you can also organize your palette. And to do so, you just have to toggle this edit button. So whenever it's on, you can apply edits inside the palette. So we're going to speak about the features of the palette bit by bit. I'm not going to explain all the stuff at once. Just whatever we use, I'm going to say what it does. So the first element is selection. So it does as it says. So it just selects whatever you want to do with the palette. So let's say I don't like this palette here. This should be on top of this one. That's simple. So let's take this one. And what we need to do, we need to click M or just select this one, move. So if we click on it, and we just move this thing away. Again, you're not obligated to put them next to each other. It's all up to you. It's your palette, your choice. So let's say I want to put this one here, and you can quickly click on this one or click S, select this one, click M, drag and, whoops, click M, yep, drag and drop it here, select, get the last one, move, put it here. So we've got our pillar set up properly. Now let's make sure that the walls are put in the proper place. So you can select single elements, or you can just drag and drop, have multiple ones, and drag it and put it in here. Oh, and to pan around, you can either right click and hold, or middle mouse click and hold. And you can just pan around. To zoom in, just scroll up and down. Whenever you make any changes, you're going to see a small asterisk in here. So you want to make sure that whenever you finish everything, just click Control S to save it. I haven't finished yet, but I just want to make sure that it's saved. I'm going to click on this. Oh, wow. I think I'm just a bit thirsty. Right back. Yep. So we're back. In case you're wondering, no, it's not COVID. I was using my voice a lot today, so it's a bit cracky. Okay, so let's do the side walls. So let's just select and drag it, put it here. I think I'm gonna move this one up in here, bring this stuff down, and take care of the floor by putting it in here. I think that's good. So I finished, Control S. And whenever you finish editing in the palette, make sure to untick the edit because it's going to be a bit confusing. It might cause some bugs in some versions where when the edit is enabled, you cannot actually print or actually paint in the grid here in the canvas. So that's aside. We've got ourselves our tiny palette, which we're going to use to actually create our level. Before we create the level, let's speak about the main concepts, and those are creating the grid, which we're going to paint on. So what you can do is you can go and game object, actually components. Where's the 2D? I think I'm just too confused right now. So just right click in here, go in 2D objects, tilemap, and rectangular. So when you click it, it's going to create a grid and a tilemap. And the grid is basically the grid with the grid component, which is going to have tilemaps inside. And a tilemap is basically, I would say, it's the canvas where you're going to print or paint or put your tiles from the tile palette. I've got a lot of these in here. So before we go ahead and create all the tile maps, I'm gonna rename this one to floor. And working with tiles and tile maps in general, you need to make sure pay attention to both layering and sorting layers. So if you go in here in sorting layers inside the floor, or you can just go ahead in the top right anywhere, click add layer, and then open the sorted layers, you're going to see that we have something called floors, walls, and characters. If you don't have the walls, I might have added this one before the video. I can't remember. But anyway, make sure to have floor, walls, and character. What this means is the default is going to show first, and then the floors, it's going to go on top, and the walls will be on top, and the characters are going to be, etc. So that's been said. We rename this to floor. You make sure that it's selected as type floor as a sorting layer. So let's start painting, right? We're going to have some issues, and I'm going to show you what that issue is. And if we go back to the tile map, we've talked about selection, the movement. Now we're going to talk about painting. And by selecting B or clicking on it, you're going to toggle the painting brush, and then you have to select the tile that you want to paint. Let's say this one, and you can paint it in here. You're going to right away see some problems. You can see like, oh my god, the tile inside tile map is so small that there's a lot of free space. And that's because of one thing I've said at the start of the video is we have to pay attention to the tile size or the grid size. It's always supposed to be 16 by 16. And going back to our grid, you see that we have the cell size as 1, 1. And what this means in retrospective, this means each tile includes 100 pixels. So in order to get 16 pixels, we need to get it to 0.16. So let's make sure that it's 0.16 by 0.16. And as soon as I do this, you're going to see that I can have stuff snap correctly to its position and the same size of the rest. All right, let's just delete this one. And to delete this one, all you have to do is go into the erase. I should speak less, but I cannot because I'm making a video, So, as I said, so you can paint stuff and you can delete them by the erase. So this is a new tool. And the other one is, group it up. So it's more of like we want to make stuff more sizable. Let's say you have one tile and you want to make it bigger, and instead of going one by one. So instead you can use this paint fill box. And this one is quite simple. So all you do is it. Let me just make this different. Here we go. So if I click on this pick, it just tells me I can tell it pick this tile and I want to use it here. So instead of just looking through a tile map, just pick it up from in here and just do it. And the fill bucket just fills everything out. I don't want to use it right now because it's just boom. I don't like it too much. So that said, I'm going to delete all this stuff and start doing stuff. I think you've noticed that this skeleton guy is becoming behind. Why? It's because the skeleton is, where is it? It's stored in layer as default, so we have to make sure it's also a character. That's one of the stuff about the tile maps. We've talked about layers, we've talked about tile maps, we've talked about grids, cell size, but we have to talk about active tile map. What is this? So active tile map is which tile map we want to draw on. And since we have the floor in here only, our active tile map is floor. Let's say I want to make more. Let's say create, where is this one? New tile map. Oh no, actually, what you can do is you just can Control C and V this one. Like you can just create a new version of it. So let's make sure that we have this stuff deleted because we don't want to copy this stuff. So Control D, you can make this one called walls, or you can go in here. I've never added from here, to be honest. So we can just right click and make new tile map. Right away, it's going to create a new empty one in case you've worked on something you want deleted. So that's fine. So we've got walls, and the walls will have its own wall sorting layers. Because we want to make sure that the floor is in the back, and then the walls will be on top. Never mind whatever we put the floor. It's going to be always on top. And when it comes to walls, we want to make sure that the walls are like unpenetratable. So you cannot go through walls as a player. And in our previous episode, we did do the logic of collision. So in order to create collision in tiles, we need to click on the tile map that we have and add something called tilemap collider. And this will, by default, add a collider component to all its tiles. And we'll see it right now when we start working. And the other thing is we want to make sure that this layer of walls is under block move because it's part of the logic that we've built before. If you get confused about what I'm talking about, you can look into the series and then go one step back and then watch those video. So we've got floors of walls which we're going to use for this episode at the moment, and we've got a tile map. And then to start working, you don't have to actually worry about where to click in here. It's more important what you're doing in here. So we've got ourselves an underground tile palette. And we've got the active tile map is floor, which is fine. So let's say I want to paint on the floors. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to start doing this one here and go ahead and make this big floor. Let's add some variations just to make it look a bit dungeony, I would say. Here we go. This one, and then we got this one, and then higher. I think that's looking good. I don't like this one here, not even a bit. That's fine. I think that's enough. So we've set up the floors, right? You say, I want to start making walls. You would think that, yeah, I can click this one, I can start making walls, but that's incorrect because you're still choosing the floor tile map. So all you have to do is change it to walls and do whatever you want to do. So I'm going to start doing walls. I would like to select a group of those ones, so I can just do it this way. Here we go. And how about these ones here? I'm going to start making these walls all around. And since we've got this one here, I think I'm gonna just go ahead and make it look like a wall, I think. I don't know what is this on left side, but I think it's something with the wall itself. Since I haven't selected on the left side, we're gonna do it right now. So it's not that difficult. We just go back to the atlas, open the sprite render editor, and start adding this left one here. So again, we start this one, make sure that this is 16 by 16. What did I call this one? Vertical wall 1. Let's call this vertical wall. I think it's going to be 2 because 0, 1. I think that's going to be enough. And we click apply and exit. How do we add it in here? It's quite simple. We just do the same process again. We make sure that we select this one in here, which is new, drag it, drop it here, and it's going to ask me where do you want to save it. We just save it along the others. So here we go. Like always. But I'm a bit confused about this one here. You see there's a slight something in here. Let me just check it out. Oh, yep. So this one is taking part from the outside. So it's my mistake. I have to drag it one step to the right to make sure that I'm not getting something outside. So let's just fix this one, get out here, and then you see it's really good now. Let's select this left one and start putting this left wall. Now we have a small room with blocking walls. And then to see the results, again, whenever you finish painting, just unclick everything so you don't have to, so you don't by mistake just paint something on top of it. So if you click on wall, you're going to see that there's a colliders in here. This one is because of before we fixed it, it's still happening here. So see, now it's fine. Just disable, enable it. So you'll see we have these tiles with a green outline. This green outline will basically refers that this is a collider. Since we have this thing as a collider and it's part of a block move and we have a player, we can see if it actually works. And we can just play the game and start walking around, and you see we cannot go over the walls, which is exactly what we need. So this will help us build walls, obstacles, and all other stuff. Now, I'm gonna tackle the animation that we talked about in the intro, and animation is a bit extra, and by extra I mean is it's built by Unity, but it's still in a preview, but you can still use it. So all you have to do is download a new package. So go into the package manager. I'm just gonna increase the size of this window, and then if you don't see something here, you have to go into the Unity registry and make sure to wait sometimes a couple of seconds because it's gonna load all the packages. In my project, I have enabled the preview packages, and preview packages are basically something that's not really rolled out for production by Unity, but it's still under testing. But I'm going to use it here, and if you don't see any of those previews, all you have to do is go click on this button here while selecting the package manager, go into advanced project settings, and then make sure that this enable preview package is enabled. Going back in here, you want to make sure that you have the 2D Tilemaps extra, and this one will include all the extra stuff. I mean, one of them is going to be the animated. So click and install, let's wait for it to download. Just get some water. Oof. I got a new mic, by the way, so that's why my voice is clear and crisp, or just bad, I don't know. I'll see after the edit. All right, so we got this extras downloaded. We go back and let's decide on what do we want to use as an animation. I mean, you would just right away say, oh, let's use this enemies, but Again, characters are going to be used as a sprite render. So we're not going to use any characters in the tile map because those will be in objects with actual variables and interactions and scripts. So having this stuff will be separate as a sprite renderer as we did for the player. But the rest of the things here, like the actual design of the level, would be used as a tile map. So I was thinking, what can I use from these ones in here? As the rest is basically enemies and items and UI stuff. And we have these spikes in here. So this is a good example. We're going to use the spikes as the animation without any interactions. Those will be tackled later in the other episodes. So let's start getting the spikes one by one. Let's start naming them. Spikes 0, spikes 1, spikes 1, spikes 2. If I can just write it. And spikes 3. Right? Making sure that it's 16 by 16. And we're good. So after finishing this one, let's make this minimized. You actually don't have to put them in here. I mean, you can if you want, but everything in here for now is going to be static. What I mean by static, there's going to be no animation. You're going to do something cool. And by cool, I mean you just open the palette, right click on it, click create, go down to 2D, tile map. Oh wait, where was it? 2D, sprites. Oh, tiles. Go to tiles and animated tile. And right away you can just call it spikes, animated maybe. And you will have basically two sections. The first one is going to include the sprites that we want to include in the animation. And the second one is going to be like its settings, how fast the animation is. And if it is type of collider. So before we do anything, we need to actually drag and drop the sprites images here one by one. Since we have like 4 spikes, it's easy to just drag and drop them one by one, but it's much nicer to do it properly. What I mean by this is you should hold them up and drag and drop them, but since whenever you select something, it's just going to go away from here. It's quite simple. Just select the spikes animated and then click on this lock. This will make sure that this spike animated will always be in here, even if you deselect it. So that's going to be really cool for us. So with this locked, let's go into the spikes, hold them all, grab and drop. As soon as you finish from using stuff with a lock, make sure to unlock them, because you will get stuck and get like, what's happening? Why this is not changing? Well, anyway, just unlock it. You see our spikes in here? So we have these sprites and they will animate sequentially. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But again, if you look at it, it's not quite seamless because it's going to go out like there's no spikes, it's showing a bit, slightly showing, and then boom, it will go away. So we want to make it more smooth, or actually not real. So we will revert the animation. And by this, I mean we're going to put a couple of ones to make it go back to the initial one. This is really common when using animations of moving and stuff. So it will look loopy, I would say. Like it will seem like it's not cutting out. So let's go ahead and add this one in here, spike 2, and then spike 1. And we don't have to add the first one because it's gonna repeat itself. And playing with the speed is depending on your desire, but I'm gonna keep it as 1, and we're gonna see if it's fast or not. So what we're gonna do next is, with the palette in here, we're gonna drag this scriptable object and put it in here. You're gonna see that right away it's just static, which is fine because it's going to show only when you play the game. So I'm going to use this right now as a floor, just for demonstration purposes. So if I click on this one, as in we do any paint selection and put it here, and in order to see it, let's just go back to the game, play, and we will see this animate according to speed. So right now, it's really, really slow. So what we can do is we can go back into the animated spikes and then make sure I'm going to spike it up. So we have the minimum speed and maximum speed. To have it selected in a specific speed, make sure that both are the same same value. If I'm not mistaken, this is more of a, like if you put it 5 to 10, it will randomly move between these two speeds, but I like it to be static, so that's fine. Going ahead and clicking play, you'll see that the spikes are working just fine. Again, right now they do nothing because they're just basically part of the floor. So that's how you put the animations, and let's make sure that we save everything. And I think we've got enough stuff to build a dungeon. I'm not going to build a dungeon, and I'm going to leave this for your own creativity, so we can go ahead and open the atlas and import more stuff. You can put a ladder, you can put these volcanic stuff, you can import the head, this part and this part. So make sure to have stuff sliced properly 16 by 16, and then go ahead and then create your own dungeon and post it in the comments, or maybe in our Discord channel, just see who's more creative. And I would think that we've reached the end of this episode, and it's really interesting doing level design, and it's a bit time consuming because you want to make it look as good as you want it to be, and at the same time you make sure that it's playable in a sense that it's not too narrow, not too tight, not too crowded, but again not too empty. It varies between a lot of people, and I think in our next episode I will have my dungeon built, so you will be seeing it not now but later. But as of now, I will thank you all for watching this episode and for staying with me. And if you like this episode, hit the like and subscribe, and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.